Welcome to the ItsATreee display case tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be talking about the kits that are involved with the objects and the display cases that showcase the items, along with how to extend the mod if you're a server owner or modder. Let's get into it. For starters, the first object that's available is this display coaster. You'll notice that it's a small flat piece of wood and it has a large cargo, just like all of the other display cases. The point of this display case is to be able to showcase any item on it like a universal proxy. So as you can see here, I place a cup and the coaster or display case disappears and it leaves the cup behind. For server owners or modders that want to get rid of the space that comes with this small coaster, you just need to create the spawn position down a little bit more for a better land contact. To place the coaster, there is a kit that's involved. You bring it to hands and you will click to place and then drop it on the surface that you want. Display cases come locked by default. However, just because it's locked does not mean you cannot drag something into it. The only downside of this is if you do not own the display case and you accidentally put something in, you can't pull it out unless you unlock it, which takes roughly 10 seconds. As we unlock it, the cargo will become available. By removing the cargo, the display case base will begin to show again. This is a configurable option in the config. Moving on to the larger display cases that are a bit bigger and more grandiose, you'll notice that they have a little line in here. This is just for RP sense to show that something's holding up. We'll eventually cover how you can make your own model that does a similar thing. Just like the coaster, you have a cargo, which you can drag anything into, and it will display that locally client side. So you won't have to worry about duping or people taking your item. This display case is static, meaning the object that's inside does not move. There is an alternative display case in functionality that allows you to put some flare on your object that's being displayed. In this case, it rotates and bobs it up and down a little bit. This also is a configurable option in config. Some might wonder, in order to achieve this behavior, do I simulate the entire case 100% of the time? And the answer to that is no. This case and object is only simulated when there is something attached. So at this point, this display case is no different than this static one. Nothing being simulated, no frames being hooked into, stuff like that. Again, both of these are kitable objects. Bring the kit to hand, use the hologram placement, and then place. If you want to dismantle one of these, you bring pliers, hammer, or screwdriver into hands. And I believe it needs to be also unlocked, empty and unlocked. Bring the pliers to hand, and then you can deconstruct your display case. And it will turn back into the kit that you care about. The locking mechanism is meant to be set up in such a way that you can quickly add stuff, lock it as an owner, but as a thief, you have the ability to unlock it if somebody is not paying attention or they're distracted, and you have roughly 10 seconds to unlock it and steal the item. And that's it. This should be a relatively simple item. Stay tuned if you want to learn how to add your own display cases or modify the ones that I've provided here. Thanks for watching. Alrighty. So you stuck with me this far and you're interested in adding your own display case, or really just wanting to maybe speed up the bobbing that I've added, or making it rotate faster or slower, or maybe you want it to rotate it around a different axis. Those are all possible things here. So starting off, here's the configuration. If you're familiar with retextures, you're going to be very familiar with how to change my work here. So let's go ahead and jump into the model itself. We will open the coaster because it's the simplest option. And actually, I'm going to just duplicate this. Yeah. Cool. And I'm just going to delete everything. Here. I'll leave these here because I'll just move them. Delete the view geometry. Fire geometry. Okay, so we basically have an empty P3 just like you have created. I'll save it. Awesome. I'm going to press F7 to create a new box. Okay, I'm going to size it a little bit differently, so it's just a bit smaller. Okay, that's a bit more manageable. And as when I have everything highlighted, select everything, and I'm going to right click, redefine. So I'm going to define some vertices. Inside my geometry, sometimes your little yellow shadow things won't show up. Create new verts. So I'm just going to close and reopen. Get those to show. Awesome. You can see a faint yellow line now. So we're going to create a geometry for this component, for this object of ours. And so the geometry is going to be what we would consider collision. Okay. So I size it around the object that I want. And I'm going to give it a mass. And structure, topology, structure, topology, find components. And we're good there. If you're new, you want to put, I put damage no so you can't damage the object. Auto center 0 because I expect my object to be at the center wherever I put it. And can climb equals 0 so that people can't actually climb over this. And like with build anywheres, you can place objects in walls, which allows you to vault. And so just disallowing climbing on your objects makes it, really allows you to sidestep that whole exploiting, or is my object exploitable? Okay. For view geometry and fire geometry, I'm just going to take this, since it's a very simple geometry, I'm going to copy it, put it in the view geometry. One thing to note, the view geometry of this base coaster or base display is going to be what triggers the action to unlock the display. So what can happen here is if you have your spawn position on the top of this object and you put an item here that's really large, like a piece of clothing or maybe a tent or some other complex object that you've created and it's bigger than the base, what will happen is that if your view geometry isn't big enough, the action to unlock won't show. So an easy way I get around that is I select this vertex selection tool. I keep my normal moves on and I select the top and I'll hold right click and drag down, which will create a really long top. So no matter how big my object is, I'll have a little bit sticking out on the top that'll allow my user to interact with. Okay. And lastly, I got my fire geometry. I'm going to paste this in here. The fire geometry is what gives us the particle display when we shoot something. And if I want my particles, my impacts to actually have a hit, I'm going to give it a penetration material. So with the vertices selected, you press E. And then in the material, you click this little open thing. And you'll want to have your go to your P drive, go to DZ, data penetration. I have mine pinned to the side because I'm always coming here. And I want it to look like wood when it's shot. And the wood desk because it's nice and fancy. And apply. Okay. Cool. Lastly, I want to do my memory points. So this is probably the most complicated thing in the tutorial. All right. So if you don't have it all already, you don't have a model that already has like a bounding box, min and max, or in view, you're just going to want to remember that insert creates points. Okay, so you'll create a point in space. Your bounding box max represents the top right of your object, and the bounding box min represents the bottom left of your object. This is for the inventory view, so it knows what little camera image to display, and the in view is the position of the camera. So if this is my front, this is my left, I want my camera to be on the side here, front of my stuff. Oops. Okay. So if we're looking at this top down, right, here's my top right, here's my bottom left, here's my camera looking at it all. Okay, and you know, you would select this, right click, redefine, right? I don't need to go over that. But now I need a way of spawning my object. Okay, and so this memory point here represents the position that we will spawn your object in local space. So if I were to put it here in the middle, the object that when put into cargo is going to be in the middle. If I put it here in the top, it's going to be on the top. Let's go ahead and put it in like kind of a wild position just to prove our point. Okay, we're going to put it really high up. And save. Cool. All right, so you have your copy. We're going to go into, and in this case, since we have a nice flat object, we're just going to copy my coaster. This one, right? So like pretend we're doing a retexture. And so you go into the vanilla files, you would copy the, either an existing color or take the color base that's there. And we're going to rename it. So in this case, it's going to be my new coaster. Okay. I'm going to copy this stuff that's to the right of the underscore because that's important. We're going to give it a new name, some new display name. The color, we're going to abuse the color-based system within the game. And so we're going to take whatever is to the right of the underscore and put in the color. We're going to do the same down here. So this first one is the kit. This bottom one is the actual object. And so if you want your hologram to display while placing, you will make the projection type name the same as the class name of the actual case. This is a new thing that Daisy gave to us like last year. Go ahead and change display name. Okay. And so in this case, I don't want to hide the baseboard when it's full. Okay. So let's go over some of the default properties that the display case has. You might have seen in the beginning. Okay. So if you want your base to hide when there's something in it, you would change this false to true. And you can see down here in my coaster, we have that properties, change it from false to true. Okay. If you want it animated, like the glass animated cat case, you would change this false to true as well. You can set the bob amplitude and frequency, as well as the rotation speed directly here in the configuration. And so if you thought the rotation was too slow, you would just increase this 10 to maybe double it for a 20 in your own class. Or you could override mine if you wanted to. You would just need to say that. Let's do it together. So you're wanting to override mine. Like a retexture, all we need to do is change the things that we need to change, and now it's going to go twice as fast for that. My coaster is not going to hide the base. By default, it's false. Okay. And I will need to add the model. Play case. Grab it from here. We're gonna let that exit and we're gonna pack and then restart the server. And while that's happening, I'm gonna explain some of the code that's going on in the back if you want to actually override the mechanics or the code. Maybe you want to add a different oscillation pattern, or instead of a bob up and down, you want to do a wiggle. Those aren't configurable through the config. You'd have to change the code. Double check, do we have everything we need? Coaster, copy. You do not need to add your own kit as a scripted class. I've done it for my own because it's good practice for me to define script classes for the configs that I've made, because I don't know how other people want to use them. But if you're doing it for your server and that's all you need to maintain, you do not need to make your own script classes. As long as you inherit from this stuff in the config, everything should just work. Let's actually speed this up to like 45 just so we can make sure it's actually happening. And it'll be easy to see. Oh, I would need to I need to put this in a different file. Okay. Well, we're not going to do that then. But you could in your own server pack. I would just need to, I would have to create a whole new config to override that. And I don't want to do that for the sake of this video. Okay. And we're up. So an important thing to note is the only thing that's being synced here from the server is if the case is locked. Everything else is basically client side, right? Including the displayed item. I do not keep any copies of the object on the server other than whatever the vanilla cargo system handles. So I basically clone the object that's in the cargo on the client side. So nothing is dupable because I disallow taking the action, and the simulation here also only runs on the client. So even then, if it was turned on, it would only impact the client. Let's see. When variables are synchronized, we update the display case, whether or not it's locked. We'll lock all the slots in the cargo. So basically, if something's inside the cargo and it's locked, you can't pull it out. Is takeable is what turns the object, the display case, to not have a tooltip. So if you want your display case to display like, hey, pedestal case, you would back my cursor. You would override this to be true. Let's see. When the cargo goes in, we have a delay to create the display object. It's important to know that I do this 300 millisecond delay because when the server starts, the order of object creation is a little bit, I shouldn't say is wrong. It's just, there's nothing wrong with it. It's serial. And so what happens is the object is created and added into the cargo. So let's say for normal items, that's fine because it's just a single item, like a piece of firewood or a piece of food. But let's say I have a gun with several attachments. The base gun is created first and then added into cargo. And then furthermore, we add the attachments to it. And so at the beginning here, it would create the object and it would just create the gun because the attachments hadn't been put on yet. And so this delay here allows the attachments to be added to the gun, which will allow the startup to actually showcase the weapon with all the attachments. And then here is a convenience function to update the base visuals. So in here, you don't have to do anything. It will basically take whatever you've defined inside of your hidden selections in your object and set it to that. So if your object already has a texture, it's just going to use whatever the existing texture is. Okay. Creating the object is important to note that it has no persistency in the world or the character. Even if the character picked it up, it wouldn't save. And it has no lifetime. and it's only local. So again, this is another sort of gate on we're ensuring that these items can't be duped. So even if somehow the player got it into their inventory, I don't even know how they would do it. It still would go away whenever the server reset. And here's the other stuff for attachments. And then again, we're just using add child magic. I tried playing around with attaching it to bones here. I couldn't get it to work. So if you know what you're doing and someone's figured out how to attach bones on objects, let me know, because I had to do this whole simulation through frame events, basically these event masks, to get the movement working on the animation. So that's kind of an area of my limitation. Deleting the object is using vanilla's delete functions from the Mist gameplay. Basically, since we've added a child, we need to address that hierarchy when we remove the object. We can't. It's not good enough just to delete it. We'll orphan objects and it'll cause issues. So in this case, we delete the object through add child, and then any references to it are cleaned up through this function. Base visuals we already showed, and so then the meat and the potatoes of the animation is pretty simple. If we're animated and we have an object, increment our delta time, and then we have our function for bobbing, which is just an up down, which is a sine function, so it oscillates around a circle. If you're familiar with that, it creates a wave, which just keeps us clamped between a positive and a negative value. And from the spawn position in our P3D, we will oscillate up and down and set the position of the object. Also for rotation, we get the orientation of the object currently. We add our rotation speed to the animation time, and then we wrap or clamp at 360 degrees since we're on a circle, and we set our orientation. Pretty basic trigonometry. You can see up here that our amplitude, frequency, and rotation speed are properties. This allows a modder to override them or even change this entire animation feature if you wanted to. I think that is it. Pick, modded item registered, actions. The action itself for locking is pretty simple. We just check to see if it's not locked and we have the target of our object. Then the recipe to deconstruct is basically, am I looking at my case? Do I have the proper tool? And then use the color of the case to deconstruct. And then here's is it empty? Is it locked? Okay, let's see if our test cube worked. Admin tools. Like case, we have my new kit here. We know it's ours because some new display name. I'm going to choose the placement. We can see a little baby square. Because I put this thing smack dab center, half of it was above the origin, half of it was below, you can see it's clipping halfway into the desk. I did this on purpose so that you can see that if you really wanted a nice, clean, flat object, you would need it to sit underneath the origin. Okay. Oh, but it looks like action place object forces surface alignment. All right, no worries. Let's go ahead and add something into it. Oh, there's nothing in it. I put it on the other display coaster. I was like, what, is it broken? But there you go. You can see that our spawn position is way above it, and it's floating way above. So we've just basically made our own model by, it's very crude and primitive, but you can see how it's basically a retexture if you wanted to add your own. You can have some modeler make you a nice, cool display case, and now all you need to do is add a spawn position to make this all work. Let me know if you have any other questions, and I will try to answer them. Thank you for watching.